Hello everybody, a quick video here. I want to talk about whether um, men's rights is a left or right issue. And I have an opinion on this. My opinion on it is I can see where Bernard Chapin is coming from, in the sense that the government will always play individuals against each other, and thus preventing um, individuals from getting guaranteed rights, individual rights. And it does this by by an endless war against each other. For instance, women will always vote for socialism, well, nearly always vote for socialism, because socialism gives them extra rights and without the responsibilities. For instance, childcare laws, being able to abandon their child, um, and no such right existing for men. So all the responsibility goes on to men and not women. From that point of view, you could say that human rights is a right issue. And I would agree with that. However, it is not a men's rights issue, and the reason, and I think I've already proven why. And the reason I say that is because if you look at women, like I've just said, women have got more rights than men right now. And the reason they've got all those rights is because they've influenced politics, they've done all these identity politics, and so they have more rights than men right now. So from that point of view, it is not a right issue. But furthermore, it is kind of futile to think of it as a left or right issue, because women consist of, in the United States of America anyway, of 51% of the population, and last turnout they had 53% of the electorate. And in the last election, men did what Bernard Chapin tells them to do. Men voted Republican. They voted for smaller government. But what did women do? They voted for Obama. So it's like that internet meme. My girlfriend wanted a cat, and I did not, so we compromised and we got a cat. You know, that's a meme. I don't know if you've heard of it. So, you know, if we're not going to make any significant changes through the electoral system. Um, but what is more is, let's say we do eliminate it down to a right issue, and that is smaller government and individual rights. The problem with this is, not only have you eliminated 50% of our support, not only have we eliminated 50% of our support, trying to advocate for the right paradigm, which in this leftist paradigm is virtually impossible for the reason as I just mentioned. Not only have you eliminated 50% of our support, but you now open more debates as to what we mean by the right issue. For instance, Rocky Mystery is anti-abortion, and the problem with this is, well, that's against individual rights, isn't it? And I know you could argue that the fetus is a living being. I would argue it's not, but the point is by say banning abortion and calling it murder, what you are doing is you're basically saying that the sovereignty of the woman is null and void because of the fetus, and you cannot go against one person's liberty for another person's liberty. You can't take one person's right to you can't take one person's right away in order to yeah, you see where I'm going with this. And not only that, but what about circumcision? That's another thing. So for instance, let's say abortion. So you've, from the left to right thing, you've taken away 50% of your support. With abortion, you've taken away maybe what, 20% maybe. What about circumcision? You know, is that a right issue? You know, again, you know, I reckon that most people would be for banning it, but you could argue that it is the right of the parents to decide whether they should accept circumcision or not, or as I like to call it, genital mutilation. So you know, you've divided opinion even further, and let's be honest here. We're not going to make huge changes. We're not going to reinvent politics. We're not going to go. We're not going to get monarchical capitalism back. That's just not possible. Again, going back to the electoral turnout, So we're not. What we are. What we are is an advocacy group, and that's. We are here to get compromises. We're here to get consolations. We're not here to reinvent um, politics. We're not going to get that. So what we should be doing is we should be trying to get 50-50 parenting, etc. Yeah. That being said, there are a few things that are a concern. One thing that we need to, and I think Karen Strawn said this in a previous forum discussion. She said that we need to not censor opposing opinions, which is why I think it's important that we keep this dialogue going, and we make sure that, for instance, the Voice of Men doesn't start censorship, which I know it's been accused of. I know also that Paul Elam has been accused of being a bully, but you know, and I have to admit I was a bit. I think sometimes he does come across as being a bit crass. For instance, I think there was one video where he was talking about how a rape trial ended with the man winning or something, and he was playing Oh Happy Days or something, or I think it was Sister Act 2 or something, and I remember thinking to myself, well, that's not very good for public relations, but the way I see it is this: the men's rights movement needs a bully, it needs a dictator. I know that's going to come across as being a bit bizarre, but if you look, I mean, let's look at the men's rights movement. It has made, let's be honest, no progress. It is only in the past few years that the men's rights movement has really taken off, in my opinion. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to Paul Eden, whether you like him or not. So, as far as I'm concerned, we need a bully anyway. Also, I think there was a few people disappointed with adding the H in MRA, Men's Human Rights Association. And yeah, okay, look, I know that sounds like appealing to leftists, and yeah, it is giving in to that degree. But I think what people like Bernard Chapin, and I like Bernard Chapin, I really do, but I think when I look at for instance, I asked Bernard Chapin what the point was in advocating for the right if it just keeps getting compromised. I've mentioned Ronald Reagan and how the deficits increased under Ronald Reagan's regime, and I mentioned how the left was how leftists were mentally ill, and he agreed, and I said, well, what's the point in fighting if you can't cure somebody who is mentally ill? And he just kind of goes on and says, oh, we'll try, we'll just keep fighting to the end. And it's just this point, it just comes across as pointless to me. I mean, let's be perfectly honest about it. Bernard Chapin is a bald white guy with flags in the background. He's the leftist game, the paradigm we live in of cultural Marxism. He can't really make any general huge impact, and advocating for the right, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to happen. The only way I can see the right, the real right, not the fascist right, the fascist slander that we have in Europe. The only way I can see the real right of individual liberty coming back is if there's an economic crash. So that's my opinion on that. So again, I don't think men's rights is a right issue. I think human rights is a rights issue, definitely. But do I think it's a men's rights issue? No, I don't think it is. I think we've got to be honest. I've got to be honest about our resources, and our resources says that we don't have the resources to advocate for the right. It's just a tough sell. I mean, if you're advocating for the right, you're basically saying to people, we're going to get rid of the welfare state, we're going to get rid of the minimum wage, etc., etc. And it just becomes ridiculous. So that's my opinion. I mean, by all means, I think Bernard Chapin should just keep fighting for it, by all means. But I don't think it's a men's rights issue, and I think to say that it is it's just pointless. It's not going to get us anywhere. So that's my opinion. Thanks for listening. I hope, give me your opinion in the comments.